Welcome back. Now, new digital platforms have unleashed innovative journalistic practices that enable novel forms of communication and greater global reach than any point in human history. But on the other hand, disinformation and hoaxes that are popularly referred to as fake news are accelerating and affecting the way individuals interpret daily developments. Fake news and sophisticated disinformation campaigns are especially problematic in democratic systems, and there's growing debate on how to address these issues without undermining the benefits of digital media. Effective responses to disinformation in the media space are needed at different levels, embracing from accurate reporting, promotion of news literacy, and strong professional journalism in our society. To talk to us about the role of radio in countering disinformation, we're joined on the line all the way from Gobabis in the mighty Omaheke region by the board chairperson of the Namibia Community Broadcasters Network, Mr. Levi Katire. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning to the whole DMN team, the whole NBC viewers and listeners. Good morning from the great Creole country.
How are things in Gobabis this morning, sir?
Very pleasant, lovely weather as we've been receiving the rain, so we are quite excited about the year.
Great. Now, getting to the business of the day, sir, although similar, the words fake news, misinformation, and disinformation are materially different in terms of their meaning. Can you briefly define these words for us?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think it's one of those things that we, as citizens of the Republic of Namibia, have to pay very close attention. And I think make deliberate means to understand and see how we can clearly and distinctively define the words so that we can actually have a proper contributed effect to the information sphere. So fake news, if you're talking to some media, MIL experts, they will tell you we actually in the media do not want to use the word fake news any longer because this is one of the terms that has been popularized too much in the term, especially of the likes of Donald Trump and so on. But fake news is actually the deliberate mix of facts and fake information that is actually or passive outright lies that is spread deliberately. So that is basically fake news. And misinformation is the supply of unstructured or chaotic information. And this is done at different levels of truthfulness and also harmfulness in the society. So misinformation, and it could be that misinformation, it can be false, but it's probably not created with the intention to cause harm, and also it is probably not fact-checked, let's say. Journalists sometimes just tend to share or to articulate information without really taking out their facts right, and this can constitute to misinformation because it's not deliberately created to cause harm. But on the other hand, misinformation is entirely false information that is created or made to cause harm, and this is done by people who are motivated to get or to have for psychological, financial, or political gain. And this is basically also to be disruptive to society or get favors, or sometimes especially in online platforms. These are created to actually redirect people's attention to certain platforms for either financial whatsoever tricks that they want to do to rob people and so on. So those are the different levels of basically fake news and misinformation and disinformation.
Thank you very much, sir, for helping us understand those terms so much better. What impact have those developments had on the credibility of radio as a platform?
I think this actually, in the media generally, it has had a great impact in the sense that people or the society tend to distrust media, especially social media and so on. But I think in terms of traditional media, especially that has a sense of terrestrial and transformation of information, Actually, especially for radio, I think during this misinformation, disinformation, fake news age, somehow have had the benefit of having society actually gain more credibility in the way we publish information, because this is real time. When you're watching TV or when you are listening to the radio, it's pretty much real time, and people have always had trust. So I think society now is relying more on radio and television, especially for better information. They believe that there's no longer, there is not much fake news and disinformation and misinformation, especially on radio and television. So I think it has somehow contributed positively and negatively as well.
Now, sir, some scholars are of the view that the advent, the surge of disinformation and misinformation that we have been witnessing is a result of new communication technologies and social networks to be the main drivers behind the phenomenon. What are your views on that finding? And from your own observations, what would you attribute the surge in disinformation in Namibia to?
Yeah, I think it is to a very great extent true that social media and new technologies have actually contributed very much to fake news and misinformation and disinformation, because this platform, this new way of communication, have actually allowed everybody in society to actually be able to be content creators in their own ways. And so when there are content creators, when there are so many content creators in society, people who are at different levels of understanding actually then tend to be at the harmful end of this. So, yeah, but I think, but in society in Namibia, it's one thing that we can actually learn to do away with, especially society should be well informed. I think also the scholars, like you have mentioned, can play a very critical role in understanding these different levels of information disorders in our country, so that they can actually be also the ones who are informing our grandmas, our grandfathers, and especially who are gaining access to new technologies. But however, the information they get in these technologies, they actually tend to distribute innocently. So we can play a greater role in actually doing away with this.
Now, sir, the reality of the 2022 day is that mainstream media platforms are not immune to disinformation. What would you attribute that to?
Yeah, and it's very, very true. I think the journalistic credibility, or the strength or the credibility of journalism has actually deteriorated a little bit, I should say, in the new age, because journalists tend to want to be fast in also distributing information. There's a high sense of competitiveness in how fast information reaches society without actually doing the actual or fundamental journalistic work. So I think journalism or journalists can do a better job in terms of not only competing in the fastness of spreading information, but not turning more towards the quality of information. And with that, you can actually start doing away with all this fake news and all that.
Now, if one has regard of this era of skepticism brought about by the avalanche of disinformation, how can radio as a medium and as a platform retain its credibility?
Like I said earlier, I think radio is a little bit at an advantage or on the advantage side of all this fake news pandemic and so on. But I think we can still do a better job. I think radio stations should deliberately create content that is meant to educate society about all this fake news, misinformation, disinformation. And when we create programs or content that actually educates society about that, then we actually also at the same time gain or regain our credibility in those aspects.
What about using editorial policy as a tool to counter it from the onset before it slips through the cracks, sir?
Yeah, and that's very true because when you look at many radio stations, especially the industry that I'm specifically associated or operating in, which is community media, I think a lot of community radio stations actually, I must admit, can do better in following their editorial policies or having them in place if they actually don't have, because we know of the existence of some that actually don't have editorial policies and they practice radio just on the go. But I think we can do a better job in ensuring that we have proper and updated editorial policies that speaks to the laws of the country and that speaks to the media ethics to do away with this. So I think this is one area that we need massive improvement in.
Help us juxtapose the role of community radio stations compared to mainstream and other radio platforms.
Yeah, good question. I think it's one of those things that I think the nation has not been paying much attention to over the years. Community media plays a very massive role in society. Community media and community radio stations, to be more specific, are located in the non or semi-urban areas of the country, like in smaller towns, in smaller villages, and this is the media outlets that actually extend the mandate of distribution of information and speaking to society and informing society and educating society. The citizenry in these areas actually tend or usually do come to community radios. It's just a matter of stepping into the building, and they have access to not only accessing the top-down approach of information, but rather they actually are the ones who are contributors to content. They are actually the ones who come to the radio station to speak about issues that affect them on a daily basis. Mainstream media or public media most of the time tend to be having the up-down approach of information dissemination or actually inclusive or inclusive to society, which actually does not play a very critical role. And I think in that regard, community media plays a very big role. And I think now at this point in time, we are actually very much appreciative of the fact that especially our custodian Ministry of ICT has, for the past 2 years, been very, very contributive to society and to community media. We have had massive engagements with them, and we are actually busy now formulating the community media framework policy that will go to cabinet, and hopefully it will assist in the better operations of community media in this regard.
So now the theme for this year's commemoration of World Radio Day is "In Radio We Trust." What is your take on that?
I strongly believe for the past 5 years I've actually been involved in especially the World Radio Day. I think this is one of the strongest themes that has been set for celebrations of World Radio Day. I think it speaks volumes to radio and how society actually perceives it. It's long overdue that we took such a stand of saying that society actually does trust in radio. And I think from radio side, we can actually do better in keeping firm to the fact that society actually trusts us by sticking to journalistic ethics and the fundamentals of journalism work. Yeah.
Now, sir, in Namibia, we reach close to 80% of the population through radio. Do you believe it's a medium that will ever go out of fashion?
Radio can never ever go out of fashion. I don't believe that it can go out of fashion. I think radio has a great potential of adaptation to whatever technologies actually comes up. On board. I think in adapting, if you think of radio, you might think that maybe radio can or might actually in the future do away with being terrestrial. Terrestrial meaning by transforming or transmitting information via FM or AM and so on, maybe going towards online or satellite more, but in general, radio itself, I think, is eternal, and I think can be eternal. I think also journalism, as much as people are getting excited on doing media and journalistic work, at the end of the day, when they gain more skills and when they get more knowledge and experience in journalism and media, they actually tend to realize that the citizenry actually have so much trust in radio, so they tend to, and radio and television, so they tend to rely on also using these platforms for their media and journalistic work. So I think the more they do that, the more radio actually stands a greater chance of being close to eternal, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Katire. Now, as we are celebrating World Radio Day, what concluding remarks do you have as far as disinformation is concerned in this medium of communication?
Yeah, I think in conclusion, I would also like to really congratulate our Republic of Namibia. I think we do great work in our democracy and information or access to information. I think we are, when at the government level, when we start talking or when we start moving towards things like actually wanting to enact our access to information bills and so on, I think we actually are realizing that the citizenry or information is important to the entire nation. So we are looking forward to especially the enacting of the access to information bill, so that we can actually be able to inform our society and actually gain information. Not only we don't have to force institutions and so on to give information to us. And I think with this access to information bill, having to know that information is going to be made readily available on a proactive mode, I think that's one thing that we celebrate. So for World Radio Day this year, I think we can actually say moving towards Rehoboth, where the main celebrations are. We're excited, and we also as Community Media Network, especially with the representing body, Namibia Community Broadcasters Network, we are excited. We are evolving in major ways that we can, and also continue to shaping community media in the country.
So thank you very much for your time, and happy World Radio Day in advance.
Yeah, happy World Radio Day to you too, and continue to doing great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Levi Katire. He's the board chairperson of the Namibia Community Broadcasters Network, talking to us about World Radio Day. We will be right back after a brief break.